Forever we have heard, oh my God, the cases are going to surge. If we open back up, the cases are going to surge and the death rate is going to skyrocket. There are going to be a lot of New Yorks, right? New York City, a lot of New York states. What we have seen so far is even as the cases have tripled, the deaths are not skyrocketing in Florida, Texas, Arizona, or anywhere else that the media is obsessed with the so-called second wave. All right? So you need to go look at the data that I wrote about yesterday on Outkick. But what it does is expose the media's lies and cover-ups of what happened in New York. Guys, Florida and Texas are on track to have the same number of confirmed cases as the state of New York, which has more cases than anywhere in the country. Yet they are going to have a 1/10 death rate in the state of Florida and in the state of Texas compared to what happened in New York. What happened in New York was an unmitigated disaster. And I'm hoping that having these stark realities put in front of the media, where they look at total number of cases and they look at the death rate, and they recognize that Florida is 1/10 and that Florida is 1/8 and Texas is around 1/13 of the death rate, it's going to be, I think, impossible to ignore the disaster that occurred in the state of New York. There is absolutely no way to defend the decisions that were made in the state of New York by Andrew Cuomo. The media has praised Cuomo to the high heavens. He made the most disastrous single decision of any politician in the 21st century when it comes to loss of life, when he sent all of his patients back into nursing homes. It was an indefensible decision that is now being exposed by comparing the death rate to New York and everywhere else. Guys, it's not just in the United States either. New York and New Jersey have double the death rate of any other country in the entire world. If New York had handled things like Florida and Texas did, this would basically be a flu outbreak. Instead, all of these governors followed the lead of Andrew Cuomo, and in Massachusetts, and in Connecticut, and in New Jersey, and in Illinois, and in Michigan, and in Pennsylvania, the death rate skyrocketed based on idiotic leadership from Andrew Cuomo that was parroted by everyone else. This isn't my opinion. This is 100% reflected in the actual data. And I don't know why the media, by and large, as a group, is so allergic to actual data. The fear porn forecasts, which have time after time not panned out, totally led to a panic in New York. They projected, the fear porn expert forecast did, that they were going to need 140,000 beds. They turned the entire Javits Center into a coronavirus hospital. They brought up the ship and they never actually needed to use it. This is an unmitigated disaster, a failure of the highest magnitude, and now you are starting to see, oh my God, a realization of how bad it is, because you can compare direct case numbers in Florida and in Texas with here. All right? This is a huge story that should be the number one overall story in all of America as it pertains to the coronavirus. It also calls into question all the Corona bro panic out there. You know, all the Corona bros running around like, oh my God, cases are up. Deaths are going to skyrocket after. It's not happening. Do you know why it's not happening? Because treatment is better, because it's not happening in nursing homes, and because by and large, many of the people that are getting it now are young and they're going to be fine. It is a month now since the cases started to go up in a big way in Texas, in Arizona, and in Florida. And we haven't seen any kind of skyrocketing New York-like death rate. I want to put this into perspective for you right now. New York, according to their data right now, has a 1% death rate for confirmed cases, which means it's probably 0.1% since the CDC says we're only catching about 1 in 10 of every cases, right? But when you actually look at it, okay, when you actually look at the data, Florida is sending a pretty strong message here that we don't need to be concerned about the death rate from the coronavirus anymore, even if the cases go up. We need to be going back to school. We need to be going back to work. A 1% death rate among confirmed cases, which is going down under 1%, is a sign that the coronavirus is not the disaster that everybody wanted it to be. It's not the ultimate viral boogeyman, okay? So the data is important to follow, and to put it into context even more, at its current rate of around 10,000 cases a day, in order to equal the death rate in New York, Florida would need 300 straight days of 10,000 new cases in order to actually get there. Okay, I want to repeat that again because it's going to blow your mind. Texas would need over a year of the current infection rate to equal the same amount of percentage death as happened in New York. Florida would need 300 straight days. That's all the way now, all the way until Memorial Day of next year in order to get to the same level of death that New York racked up back in March and April. What we need to be asking is, why isn't there an investigation going on into what happened in New York, into New Jersey, into that executive order requiring that hospitals send patients out of the hospital and into nursing homes? It's the number one story in all of the coronavirus, and almost everyone out there is actually ignoring it. It needs to be the number one story in all of sports. But again, in all of coronavirus. 1/10 of the death rate in Florida and Texas, even as they approach the same amount of cases out there. All right? And also, by the way, it appears that Arizona, Texas, and Florida, based on hospitalization data, have begun to move past the peak. In other words, the peak of infections in those states has already occurred, and we're already on the backside of those negotiations and those outbreaks. All right.